Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 11th episode of Altitude, which is NATS' monthly look at the world of air traffic management. My name is Johnny White. I have done this before, but I'm not a regular presenter, and credit goes to Eddie Dolan, who always leads the way. But I'm delighted to be back in the host seat for this month. Next week, for the first time in 18 months, and what an 18 months it's been, the air traffic management industry is gathering for its trade show in Madrid, its biggest trade show and conference. NATS has always been a big supporter of the World ATM Congress, and we're looking forward to seeing colleagues and customers and friends, see as many of those as possible in Madrid. I think the purpose of this conversation is to really reflect on what's happening in Madrid. While we're seeing signs of recovery, much of the aviation industry in the world, and including in the UK, is still struggling. So what kind of show can we look forward to? What do we think the hot topics are going to be? What is going to be is there going to be a buzz in the hall, or is it going to be quiet? I know that we from the NATS team have put lots of effort into our stand and talking about the products that we're doing, and I'm just hoping that some of you will be there to share that with us, and you're very welcome to come and see us on the stand. But is there potentially a cause for optimism? We're certainly seeing some green shoots. Whether that follows through into real progress is to be seen. So what can we in the ATM industry be doing to support the wider industry recovery? So with me to discuss this today are two of my most favourite colleagues from NATS. We've got Andy Taylor. It sort of said in the script, Andy, it said I had to say you're my most favourite colleagues, but actually I've known Andy and Ben for a long time, and we're really lucky to have them today. So Andy Taylor is our Chief Solutions Officer for Digital Towers. And we also have former child actor, Ben Sanford, who's now a product manager and an expert on all things intelligent approach, our arrivals spacing tool. So good afternoon, Ben and Andy.
Hello.
Hi, Johnny.
So a reminder for those of you watching that you can submit questions at any time during the show, and we'll try to make our way through them, or as many as possible of them towards the end. So please get those questions in, and we'll do our best to give you good answers. So let's start with some introductions then. None of us are air traffic controllers, or I think Andy might take offence at that. It's probably a bad way of starting the conversation, but at least we're not air traffic controllers anymore, and we work for airports, but don't work at airports. So we're part of the business that helps customers solve specific operational problems using technology, tools, and products. Andy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks very much. And yes, we have known each other for a very long time. Bring back Adi is all I can say, because he only gives me a hard time about having worked at Gatwick while he's a Heathrow controller. But no, that aside, yeah, I was an ex-air traffic controller, or rather I am an ex-air traffic controller. I was for many years a controller at tower and approach units at airports. But my specialist now is around digital towers, and bringing those into operation for ourselves in the UK and around the world with partners at airports and air traffic service providers. So certainly that's my focus for today anyway, talking about our digital tower products. And from the point of view of digital tower, just for anyone that's new to that subject, it's for me taking the visual environment of airport control, replicating that out of the window view through the use of high definition, ultra high definition cameras, but also it's about applying integration and additional capabilities to those views to really enhance what a tower can really offer individual controllers and an air traffic service provider and the airport it serves.
Excellent. Andy, thank you. And Ben, intelligent approach, you're well, you and I have worked for a long time with Intelligent Approach, taking it from a tool within NATS into a internationally deployed product. Would you like to just tell us a bit more about that? And you?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Ben Sanford. I joined NATS many years ago and spent a number of years working as an instrument flight procedure designer. So working closely with airports on the airspace developments, airspace changes, things like that, before moving into product management, where I'm working primarily on the Intelligent Approach product. And that's our arrival spacing tool, which we've co-developed with Leidos. It was initially deployed or developed specifically for Heathrow, as they had problems with capacity loss due to strong headwinds, and they were looking for a technology solution to that issue. And so we developed Intelligent Approach, and it sort of evolved from there into a product which we have now sold to Schiphol Airport and Toronto. It's currently going through deployment at those two airports, and it continues to evolve with new capabilities, which we may well talk about later in the session today.
Cool, thank you. And as a change to the normal format of Altitude, I also have to do some talking today. Please don't groan. I'm going to talk about demand capacity balancer and some of our analytics and performance tools for airports. And these things are starting to link together. Intelligent Approach, the pre-tactical plan or the strategic plan that's developed by the analytics tools moves through into the tactical delivery through digital towers and Intelligent Approach. So hopefully we'll be able to show how we're going to start knitting all these things together. So next week is the first World ATM Congress since 2019, and that's obviously a good sign. And it was normally in March or April, and the last one was cancelled. So it's good to be getting back together again in October this year. Do you think we're out of the woods, Andy, with your work with airports and ANSPs, particularly over the last six months? What are they telling you? Are you expecting business as usual, or do you think we are still in an interim position?
Yeah, I think certainly from the point of view of we're definitely not pre-COVID 2019 situation by any means. We're seeing established airports, airlines, and ANSPs in a very different environment, ourselves included. But I don't think that's actually stopping either the ambition of the industry to recover, nor is it stopping people's focus on doing things differently. And I think certainly the last 18 months has given us a real taste for the fact that things can be done differently. And in fact, we should probably challenge what we've been doing previously. Not only that, there has been a lot of time to be able to review what we're doing, and I think reconsider the future plans that we had. That's certainly my experience in terms of what people are talking to me about in relation to digital towers. So I think there may well be an assumption that technology would be the thing that's put to the back, but actually I'm finding very much that technology is very much the forefront of conversations right now, and people are looking at how they can make their operations more flexible, how they can potentially grow back to the position they were at before, or potentially in a slightly different way, but by using that technology to support. And at the same time, I think that a lot of airports and ANSPs are looking at the way that they can maintain a flexibility, because I don't think there is just an assumption that there will be continuous growth from this point. There may be stutters, there may be future pandemics, and I think these are the things that I'm seeing customers around the world, airports, ANSPs, planning for and asking what our technical and our digital tower solutions could do for them. Certainly contingency has been a big topic of conversation as well recently.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely seeing a trend towards recovery, but there are still unexpected shocks and changes. So some of the airports we're working with a new route or a new partnership will be opened up, delivering a lot more traffic and potentially at very short notice. So it's deciding how to use existing infrastructure to accommodate that new inflow of traffic as cost effectively as possible. Ben, are you seeing opportunities for intelligent approach in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. I think similar to what Andy's seeing, I think airports and ANSPs are trying to get more from less at the moment. We know everyone's under cost pressure, money is tight everywhere, and so they're looking at what they can do to future-proof themselves while also minimizing their current spend. So technology tools that can help them to maximize the current usage of what they've got, whether that be runways, whether that be their controllers, whether that be the tower infrastructure, whether it's the terminal itself. They're looking for those solutions that can expand their capacity without having to invest significant money in large capital projects like building new runways, things like that. So intelligent approach, definitely. Airports that were thinking, let's build a second runway, they're now starting to think, well, can't really afford that right now, but I'm expecting traffic to increase. Can something like intelligent approach give me that extra bit of capacity that I need for now, and let me postpone that runway for another few years?
Yeah, absolutely. Another dimension that I'm seeing is a worry about skills fade in part, and also the cost cutting that's happened across our industry has removed a lot of experienced heads. So using a better ability to plan or a clear operational plan to systemize, if you like, this kind of activity is enabling resilience for the future. And I'm personally, and this is a personal interest, because NATS motto is to advance aviation and keep the skies safe. But from a personal interest, if you think how we could use a digital tower to augment the existing capabilities at airfields and add that contingency and resilience, if you think about how intelligent approach through systemizing approach can help deliver a consistent and high levels of capability, and then the bits that I do, which are around operational planning, how a strategic plan which is setting up the right kind of flow of aircraft for the airport can then meld into an airport operations plan, an AOP to use the European language for it, and deliver a smooth flow of aircraft which is arriving when it's expected. One of the things that I always find very strange in air traffic management is that people plan around the schedule, and yet we know the schedule doesn't bear up to reality. So many disruptions happen, but I think there's a feeling within the industry that, well, those disruptions there's too many potential disruptions. It's impossible. We'll just stick with the schedule and deliver on that. But our work with airports like Heathrow shows that you can remove as much of the uncertainty as possible. There still will be pop-ups, but you've got a capacity and resilience to deal with those pop-ups, as opposed to them starting to pile up one on the other, and what would have been an amber day becomes a red day. And I really like the idea that the capability we've got a chance here with the right partners and people to work with to start to draw these things together to deliver that operational performance for the future.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true, Johnny. And I think from the point of view of the way that demand capacity balancer was being used pre-COVID, very much focused on a very packed schedule at airports like Heathrow. But actually what we've seen it used over the last 18 months has been over a very variable schedule, all sorts of impacts on a day-to-day basis, as various sort of travel restrictions have kicked in, flows have changed, airline operations have increased, decreased in different areas, in freight, as an increase in passengers, and certainly in transatlantic travel at times for us has seen some very different changes. And I know that's been one sort of area that's proven, DCB's proven its value, I think, to the Heathrow and the NATS operation around there. Certainly, I'm seeing from the digital side of things, digital tower side of things, where we were looking at then assisting controllers in maintaining that sort of full capacity. Potentially what we've got now is using the supporting tools, including artificial intelligence, to provide controllers with support when they haven't been working at full capacity for periods of time previously. So I think this can help in terms of training new controllers where they come in and not experiencing the kind of traffic we'd seen previously, to have that kind of support tool available. But likewise, in terms of actually being able to deliver either high capacity or variable capacity, especially when the level of experience, recent experience of any controller is reduced by circumstances we're facing. So I think the tool set works well from that very early sort of planning stage right into the tactical phase and the delivery of the operation. And I think, Ben, you'd probably say the same thing around intelligent approach, in terms of that's not necessarily just delivering on the peak days or the windiest days at Heathrow, for example. We've seen other benefits, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the initial impetus was for these windy days at Heathrow, but what we discovered very quickly was that actually just getting those little benefits on standard wind days gave us an additional couple of movements per hour, a couple of landings per hour at Heathrow. And if you can deliver that throughout the course of a day, that's an additional half an hour of operations across a whole day, which is a huge benefit to an airport. And particularly, as you say, coming out of this reduced traffic time, having the indicators on screen that intelligent approach gives you means controllers can have confidence in what they're aiming for. They're not just sort of taking their controller expertise and judging the required separation, the expected compression, etc. They've actually got an indicator. They know that they're 0.2 miles behind it, 0.1 mile behind it, doing fairly well, and they can have confidence that that's what they need to deliver. And so you can get right back to a relatively busy operation fairly quickly, without having to have that whole period of ramping up.
Yeah, and Ben, I was thinking about that the change now between an interim period or the COVID period and then building back. Some of the examples we had was, do I reopen a terminal? And what is the impact of reopening a terminal on ground movement at the airport, or the actual performance of the airport? We had other tests that we supported with tools, which was, can we maintain single runway operations for long enough to finish resurfacing, or do we need to can we make the decision to do resurfacing, or do we need to stick with dual runway operations because a delay will be unacceptable if we hold on? So there's just two examples of the types of decisions that having a digital twin of the airside operation can help you understand. Those feel a bit like the tactical changes with intelligent approach, where the controllers are being delivered markers to help find that optimum spacing. What's happening next with intelligent approach, Ben? How are we taking that forwards?
So the next sort of main things we're working on are putting in the pairwise wake separation criteria. In case you're not familiar with that sort of step, at the moment there's sort of 2 or 3 different wake vortex separation schemes you may be using around the world. The old ICAO 3 cat plus super heavies, or you might have moved to recat EU, or you might be moving to the new ICAO 7 cat. All of those schemes, you've got a handful of different aircraft weight groupings, which you can learn in your head what those separations need to be. When you move to pairwise, you're now talking an individual separation for, at the moment they're talking 103 different aircraft types. So the wake vortex separation between an A320 and a 737 will be different from the wake separation between an A318 and a 737 potentially, which gives us incremental benefits all over the place, which again add up to some more movements. But you can't do something like that without having a tool to give you those indicators so you know what the separation is between each aircraft type. So we're working on that at the moment. That will hopefully go live at Heathrow in a couple of years' time, and will give us that next little step in capacity on the approach front before we then start looking at more, doing a bit more work on the arrivals, on the departures front, and sort of doing a better job of integrating the departure aspects into the arrival stream. So rather than having a fixed gap between a pair of arrivals to allow a departure, we can start looking at the exact aircraft type that's departing, what route it's flying, what airline it's operating by, and you can actually, the system can start adjusting the arrivals gap to make just the right amount of space for that particular departure. Again, adding another movement, another couple of movements an hour onto the runway, just getting that benefit across the day.
Good. I mean, Andy, just on that, the augmentation that you offer with the digital tower, you know, here we are using intelligent approach to augment a controller's interaction with aircraft on the approach in that high stress approach area, high workload approach area, and adding some systemization to hopefully take some of that stress away and add a consistency of performance. Is the same kind of capability available for using digital tower technology?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, it was as Ben was speaking, I was thinking, yeah, that ties in very nicely with the digital tower applications as well, in terms of you know, in a tower environment, probably 70% of the information that a controller is using is actually visual information from outside of the control tower cab. Now, currently, in a physical control tower, effectively that requires the controller's own two sensors in their eyes, you know, looking out over the airfield, scanning the airfield, you know, full 360-degree scan effectively, and looking at other systems, correlating that data, and processing everything and making decisions based on experience. And we anticipate the controllers will continue to do that, but basically by digitizing that out of the window view, we can now take that as additional data and we can look at it 360 degrees simultaneously. So that means that software can be monitoring a much wider area to draw controllers' attention to key events, for them to either make a decision or for them to be aware of an event which is perhaps not progressing as you would hope it would do. So effectively drawing a controller's attention to a conflict or a potential problem. So I think in those terms, that's, as I say, certainly where an airport that's operating at its peak of sort of efficiency, like we saw Heathrow, that one is now, we're also seeing use cases where even busy airfields like that can now be supported in terms of making those decisions, monitoring that events are continuing as the controller expected, and drawing their attention. So it can be helping you know, a Heathrow style operation when it's under its normal high levels of capacity demand, and likewise it can be helping rapidly growing airports with these support tools. But the key is having this digital platform, and the key is also in enabling that 70% of visual data to actually become part of that decision-making process, to be able to expose it to the AI trained models, but likewise to then be able to use that information to trigger other tools, so feed back into intelligent approach, feed into DCB, to be able to give live updates as well. But for me, the key thing has been in developing with Series Technologies, our partner, 5 different scaled models using the same software platform, so we could deploy this from anything from the smallest airfield to, you know, the largest international hubs, and to be able to provide those smart applications to all airports because of that common software platform. The other thing for me is the fact that I also have airports that are operating on that same digital tower platform, either for their apron management or for airport operations or operations centres. So actually, for the first time, I see an ANSP and an airport operator using the same software platform, and that's that digital tower platform, which really opens up the world of possibilities, I think, to sharing data, and having a combined outcome, which is what the airport wants, what the airlines want, what the ANSP needs to achieve, and all of us as passengers.
I mean, it is. I think one of the things we learned through COVID, was our offers need to be scalable to customers' needs. Yes, we can prove stuff works at high intensity runway operations like Heathrow and our other customers worldwide, but it's also important that we have offers that match the market appetite. I mean, Ben, with Intelligent Approach, have you developed thinking in that way as well?
Yeah, I think similar to what Andy was saying, there's sort of probably a misconception that these tools, digital towers, Intelligent Approach, they're for the big airports, the ones that have got multiple runways running at 95% capacity. That's when you need these really big tools. But actually, the Intelligent Approach, digital towers, DCB, they can help growing airports as well. For Intelligent Approach, we've got a number of different modules that can be deployed depending on the particular airport's needs. So for a smaller airport, a single runway airport, for an airport that's just starting its growth sort of journey, a DBS system can really help with control of consistency. You don't need all the singing, all dancing TBS bells and whistles. Just getting controllers, giving them a bit more support in delivering the aircraft at just the right distance apart can really help with that capacity movement. And we've got different modules depending on whether you run in mixed mode, whether you run dependent operations, whether you have issues with runway occupancy times. And so we can configure the tool really for each specific airport and make the right offering for those airports. It's not just about the biggest, best thing for the top of the Heathrows of the world.
Yeah, understood. And it could be that an airport at the moment has peaky traffic, and particularly in COVID recovery, there seems to be. I'm thinking of examples that I know of peaky traffic coming back. So tools like Intelligent Approach can help you with that, but they can also build in that future growth or that future scalability. So for an airport that wants to show it's delivering maximum return on its runway asset, that's what Intelligent Approach can do. And I think, that one of the things that I look after is how can we really help aircraft to arrive on time? So the airport has an operating plan. Something like an AMAN system will provide a sequence of aircraft coming into the runway, but reaching out further than that. I mean, our work with Frequentis Orthogon has developed the demand capacity balancer system, and that delivers target time of arrival in its connecting into the European ground delay program to hold aircraft on the ground as opposed to in flight holding in the stacks. Now that has a big CO2 benefit, and it should be. A lot of what we're talking about, I think, is starting to really enable collaborative decision making around the arrival of aircraft between air navigation service provider, airline, and airport. So we're moving towards that position of user-defined prioritization and helping the three stakeholders in that space to work together. We're also doing some work around stands, because if we get all of airspace and the airfield working smoothly, and we can connect to the airport terminal through a dynamic stand plan that responds to that dynamic picture of arriving aircraft, then everything should work more smoothly. The idea of reducing workload, increasing systemization, providing data for automation where possible, and taking away the red days from the operation where we can. In terms of sustainability, then, something I touched on there, but Ben, COP26 is coming up in Glasgow. Everything in the news, well, a lot in the news is about sustainability and our contribution. Aviation's under pressure. Intelligent Approach, can it support sustainability targets?
Well, I think Intelligent Approach is one of the tools in the arsenal that we're deploying against sustainability at the moment. I mean, you've mentioned the TTAs and the CTOTs from DCB. Looking at the sort of the broader NATS queue management vision for the future, it's all around trying to make sure that aircraft have the most efficient flight possible, that they take off, they climb to their cruise altitude, they fly as directly as possible, they have a continuous descent, they don't hold, they come in and they land. And so DCB is helping with that intelligent approach, making sure we can keep that stream of aircraft landing on the runway, means that we don't have them holding for so long in the stacks, and sort of moving towards a more systemized airspace design where the aircraft are no longer having to get vectored, paralleled off to separate them from each other. They're just coming through a nice, consistent, following the star straight into the airport. Those all have a part to play in trying to make sure that the journey is as smooth and as efficient, environmentally speaking, as possible.
Yeah, I think I have a vision. Andy, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's again something that's come out of the last 18 months, that there is definitely a focus on our industry, just in terms of its impact on the environment, and that now is if more so a driver for implementing technology, because again, in order to provide the most efficient flight profiles, from stand to stand, effectively you need support as an operational controller, as anybody taking part in the operation. There's only so much information that human can take in within that realm. So having the ability to process huge amounts of data, ANSPs, airports, huge amounts of data, being able to actually leverage that data is something which I think has been proven very difficult in the past. I think with the kind of tools that we've been talking about today, very much more a case of being able to leverage it and provide even more data, because like I say, 70% of visual data that's added in there as well. So far too much for humans to process themselves, but effectively the outcome required is improved environmental performance as well as operational performance and safety.
Yeah, I think what we talk about can deliver capacity, or it can deliver resilience, or it can deliver sustainability. All those things are based on efficiency. The capacity can deliver revenue. I think it's a choice. I'd like to offer our customers a choice about what they go after, what metric they want to deliver, and the tools we've got can do that. I mean, one of the things we were discussing, in the preparation for this is what's our vision for airports in 5 to 10 years' time. I think it's in our gift now to start flowing aircraft into airports where they arrive as expected, where the unexpected is easier to deal with and doesn't require it doesn't require significant buffers like we've got today. Mm-hmm. That the aircraft play their role in a systemized airspace and airfield, which makes the terminal experience and the terminal performance and ultimately passenger experience smoother on every journey. And that, it can only be good for aviation doing that, because at the end of the day, my view is if the passengers are getting a really rewarding and valuable experience and service from what we're doing, well, then that bodes well for us. Is there anything else we wanted to cover? Maybe we'll just wrap up. Andy, is there anything from you?
So I think really we've probably covered quite a lot of it in terms of helping the industry recover, potentially the changed master plans that we see airports having the ability to deploy some of these technology solutions, but in a stepped kind of way, which that actually that modular kind of deployment, definitely something that we have and we've all evidenced in terms of the 3 tools that we've talked about today, certainly from my perspective with digital towers. And I think the resilient side of the operation that I think has become more apparent as to how much resilience or otherwise is currently in our various airports operations around the world is something that's focused on, and I'm seeing adding in contingency solutions as being one of those kind of key areas that's really growing just now. But yeah, I think in general probably be interesting to hear what the audience has picked up from what we've said so far, and maybe to answer some of their questions.
Yeah, indeed. Well, and Ben, any final reflections from you?
I think as we've just been saying, that the systemized airspace, that whole making everything work as efficiently as possible from departure through to arrival, that's going to be huge for the next 5 to 10 years. Making sure we've got as many tools as possible to help facilitate that. And we haven't really mentioned on this call, but the NATS 3DI metric is what we use internally to measure how efficient we're being in our overall performance, and that's now available to other ANSPs to use, or airlines or airports if they wish to use that methodology. And it really helps to sort of focus in on the areas where you can find benefits, where you can find some airspace you can change, some controller procedures that can be improved, just to try and keep making every little thing that much more efficient. And hopefully through the process of refining that, going around the circle, measuring, improving, we can get to a place where the aviation industry is delivering the best possible performance for both the customer and for the environment.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. I've got some questions that have come in. So the first question being asked is, it's got my name against it, Johnny, so you two can relax. What's the alternative to airline schedules? One needs to have a base. So I agree. The schedule is still at that strategic or seasonal level, the base that from where we start. Performance-based capacity declaration for the runways per hour is something where we help a number of airports to work with airline, ANSP and airport to work out against whether it's a delay metric or environmental metric or a noise metric, what the right kind of traffic mix is per hour to deliver the maximum from the asset. So that is still based on the seasonal schedule, and that's a seasonal conversation. But 6 months later, when the aircraft are 2 days before departure, or when the aircraft are just departing from their outstations, that seasonal schedule doesn't match up to what reality is. We know the bell curve of arrival distributions at airports can be really wide. You can have aircraft arriving an hour early or an hour late. What is interesting is when a number of aircraft that you aren't expecting to arrive in a particular way arrive together. We've all been in a queue. I remember stepping off a 380, wonderful aircraft, and you get down to customs. It's all absolutely seamless. The place is bizarrely empty, the airport. I love this airport. And I arrive at the baggage carousel having brushed straight through everything to find that there's a 20-minute wait for my bags. Another aircraft's arrived. Yeah, they join the back of the queue that I've created at customs because they're late. Yeah, their bags are all of the apron staff are there to make sure their bags are on the carousel on time, but they aren't there to pick up their bags because there's the back of my queue. This kind of inefficiency, I think, it can be avoided. We can move, relying on the schedule to plan, particularly in the pre-tactical and tactical space, it builds in the risk of failure, is my view. So hopefully that's addressed your question. Andy, there's one for you. The fallback Heathrow tower location and the tower service supplied, would a formal virtual tower setup be an ideal candidate for this location of service?
Yes, so not just Heathrow, but certainly at Heathrow, we currently have a contingency facility nearby, not quite on site, which enables us to continue the operation. It's not a digital tower. It's currently based on ground radar surveillance procedures, which uses an ICAO trigger line concept, which NATS produced evidence and safety assurance for many years ago. However, things have moved on for major airports like Heathrow. Digital towers are definitely candidates to be deployed at airports, and we have a model for that type of airport, which Heathrow, Singapore, Hong Kong, those kind of airports absolutely are likely to benefit from. But in terms of deploying a digital tower solution means you already have the kernel of a contingency available, because in in providing that out of the window capability, not just a single out of the window capability, but one where you can bring distant areas of the airport. Heathrow Terminal 5, Terminal 2 are effectively 3 kilometers or more apart in opposite directions. So for ground movement controllers in a physical tower, they're operating areas of the airport at distance and areas that are obscured by buildings and other aircraft. So providing distributed cameras as part of a major system for a digital tower already gives you that capability that you no longer rely necessarily on being as high up as possible or in the optimal single position for all those different functions. You can actually bring the views to a single control room. So that can be inside the physical tower as a hybrid kind of solution where we enhance what you currently have. But certainly in terms of what we're looking at then for an enhanced contingency, I have all of that capability, all of those enhanced views. I also have the capability to integrate with other systems like AIS and GCS, intelligent approach, other tool sets, and provide that to the controllers as additional prompts. So I can move all of that into a contingency environment. So effectively what I then have is a physical tower enhanced by digital hybridization. I have a contingency which actually is equally as capable, so more capable than a physical tower in the first instance. And that pretty much comes out of one deployment of a major hub airport digital tower model. So for me, contingency or primary operation, they both come from the same seed, and that's the digital tower model 5 if you want to specifically look at it for Heathrow.
I suppose that's the advantage of digitization, isn't it? You can start to replicate much more easily rather than having to build an analog replication of an operation. You can start to spin up instances much more easily.
Exactly. Sorry, I was just going to say, and that's actually the other discussion that then builds out of the back of this. And I've mentioned the impact on master plans previously, where that master plan may now be elongated to the extent that if you were going to build a physical control tower to enable that master plan to go into play, you're going to have to do it at some point as you start to build this extra infrastructure. If you do it through digitization, you can actually add on additional coverage, but still stay with your ops room, be it either your physical ops room or be it in a new digital facility, so that you can move into the new enhanced world, but you can add on the extra capabilities as that part of the airport is expanded and built. So yeah, it's that scalability is also applicable once you've got your model deployed.
Okay, we've got one more or another question. I'm not sure if this is one more question, but please get your questions in on the chat and we'll do our best to answer them. How quickly, I suppose, Ben, how quickly do you think that capacity constraints will become felt as air traffic recovers post-pandemic?
I haven't checked my crystal ball this morning, but I think a lot of it's going to depend on how the pandemic continues. If everything keeps declining, then we may well start to see things next year. If there's more spikes in cases, then who knows what will happen. But I think what's almost certain to happen is that it will be unexpected. It will be random spikes in different places as different travel restrictions are lifted and suddenly everyone wants to go to one place that wasn't expecting them because they normally go to a bunch of different places across the world. And so we'll suddenly see an airport that has not previously been a particularly capacity constrained airport suddenly having a very busy period when suddenly everyone wants to go on holiday there because that's the only place you can go or something like that. So it's going to be, a lot of it's going to be reactive to trying to see how these restrictions and things play out, and then what the airports in question can do, and the NSPs in question to mitigate and cope with that sudden rise in demand.
But I'd almost put that question back to you, Johnny, because I think you're the one with the digital crystal ball in terms of your demand capacity balancer. You know, we saw that in operation during the COVID pandemic, where schedules changed so rapidly, and I know that the kind of sandbox area where you can test various scenarios and see which is the most performing sort of plan, you can form those in DCB, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm thinking about, we've got some countries where domestic traffic is now back up to 100%. So we have airframes moving at 100% of their pre-COVID level. In fact, some countries have already exceeded their pre-COVID ATMs. In the UK, I think Heathrow is back up to 950 movements against a cap of 1360 roughly. So it's getting close to 1,000 is quite important. Whether that will soften with the winter schedule, and then we'll see depending on what happens, Ben, as you said, during the winter, whether Easter next year, the summer schedule for next year, we'll see really quite a big bounce back. But if you think about other areas of the economy where there's been pent up demand, and that demand has suddenly been released by a removal of restrictions, I'm not a betting man, but I'm forecasting that Easter next year might be really, really busy. So it's going to come back quickly. And I'm thinking as an industry, because we've been through quite a lot over the last 18 months, are we ready for Easter? And I know some of the tools and capabilities we talk about here are very suitable for solving that problem. Getting them in place by Easter, yes, we can do some things like that. We can certainly help with the underpinning principles, and NATS is standing by to help with that. And we're committed to airports worldwide to support that bounce back. I think that is all we've got time for. So thank you very much for all the questions. I think we survived the questions, Andy, Ben. That's always the sort of nerve-wracking bit. That we haven't been able to get through all of the questions, but thank you for sending them in. I thank you, Ben and Andy, for what's been a really good discussion. It's not easy doing these things, and actually, I do like spending time with you. And actually, after a while, we just talk about what we love, which is the aviation industry, which is good. For those of you who will be at the World ATM Congress in Madrid next week, I hope to see you then. Ben and I will be on the NATS stand. And if you want any more information about the topics we've been discussing today, you can find it at nats.aero. That's nats.aero, where there's a freshly updated World ATM Congress page, and also details on our products and services. So Ben, Andy, thank you, and goodbye from us.
Thank you.
Thank you.